All right, casting a net. Casting a net. This is a springboard off of a concept from Viking Preparedness. I suggest you go check him out at Patreon. Viking Preparedness at patreon.com. The concept is you're not going to have, and this is just where the springboard ends, you're not going to have a bunch of Green Berets or hunters or trappers or woodsmen in your group. Well, maybe you won't, because you failed to do proper life studies, because most of you don't even know how to do an area study, and that's not being insulting. It's just you don't have the tools to do it, nor were you trained to do it. A real one done by professionals is quite different than an interior decorator version. Just like I wouldn't get advice on what camouflage to choose from a blind man. I can't see it, right? Don't get medical advice from someone playing a doctor on YouTube. Don't get sniping advice from someone who can't even zero their own rifles in the brown. Yeah, like there's adjust weights and measures. An example of this, and oftentimes if we go to this extreme, we start to see the principles come up, whether our emotions are in the way or not. You know, the extreme is, I want yellowfin tuna and coconuts. Okay, well, you probably don't want to live in Montana. In order to raise and grow coconuts and yellowfin tuna in Montana, that would be an enormous expense of resources, wouldn't it? To have them grow in the wild here. The environment isn't conducive to it. And that's a huge principle with casting a net, or where you want to be. Well, I just can't find any good people. Well, I had privates when I was in the military. And all the time, Joe Snuffy would go to the wrong place, the wrong part of town, to find his new bride who has other motives based off of location, right? It happens all the time. That's why it sucked being a fire team leader, because like every weekend your guys are getting in trouble. And those of you that serve, you understand that. And when you graduate past that babysitting job into around a bunch of professionals, like on a special forces team, and it doesn't mean guys wouldn't do stupid stuff. They were just better at covering it up. There was a lot more peace, because there's a standard. There's a standard. If you want to have a bunch of Green Berets or Rangers or Marines or whatever on your group, or just a few, where would you look? Well, if you lived in a place where there's none, chances are you won't find any. Right? Like, where do they go? Where's their watering holes? Where do they hang out? You know, many people, they complain about, I can't elk hunt and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, your idea of hunting is probably myopic, because you watch nothing but hunting shows. There's people that hunt and people that harvest. No, I mean, if the elk are in your backyard, how hard is it to go get the tractor and pick them up and move them to the butcher shop? The principle is, remember where you are. That comes from the survival acronym. And when you're casting a net for your group or whatever, if the more filters you put in place, the less waste of time you're going to have. And time's our most valuable resource. You put a big hole like here on YouTube, it goes out to the world. Chances are there's going to be trolls. So if you look at the channel, look at my description, most people won't even read it. Then I want to figure you out, but you did read my channel description. I'm not here for trolls or know-it-alls. I know what my lane is, and I'm confident in it. Spent a lifetime developing those skill sets. I'm not going to have someone, and I'm not going to tolerate someone come to my classroom and tell me what I should do. And you wouldn't either. You wouldn't tolerate someone coming to your house and telling you how you should decorate the drapes unsolicited, right? Maybe your goals are totally different. I built our railing for upstairs, not just for aesthetics, but primarily for safety for the grandkids, because that's a priority. Your priorities may be quite different than mine. The scenarioisms, the myopia is rampant within the prepper sphere. And I agree that, when you run prepping out with that, whatever that term means to you, you end up with homestead. Well, you can't have a homestead without a home. And to me, home is where the heart is. It's not a location, it's about the relationships. How are you going to cast a net for the right relationships? Well, there's a vetting process. There has to be a vetting process. Otherwise, you're going to get wolves in sheep's clothing, a bunch of time wasters, non-capable people. We're about professionals. It just happens where we live, it's 65% veteran population. Do you think it just happened that way, or did we plan to move with years of research? It just happens where we live at one of the largest special forces associations is in our state. It just happens where we live in this state, there happens to be a high concentration of former special operators. Why is that? Well, let's do a little bit of math. Let's get some standoff, overmatch, and firepower soft of how we would go about finding longshoremen. I've never done the job as a longshoreman. I don't speak the language. I don't understand their vernacular. Matter of fact, I probably couldn't even define what a longshoreman is. So I'd have to go to another longshoreman to kind of figure out what they do. What's their angle? What's their skill set? I have no idea. Now, I've talked to a few here and there, but I didn't talk to them in Kansas. I didn't talk to them in Montana. Why? We got to go where those people is, right? Where are they at? How many special operators like to hunt and fish? How many special operators like to be outside and outdoors? You see the systematic methodology? Well, they're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. Probably not a whole lot of them in Tornado Alley unless they have grassroots there. I'm not saying there's not big deer in Kansas, and see the people that live in Kansas, but how many elk are there? Well, they're starting to get some. Great, but where's the mountains? Oh, mountains got its own ways. You see that from the movie Jeremiah Johnson, right? Yeah, it's got its own ways. So does special operations. Well, you may not, because if you go to a place where there's a few Green Berets and you burn rapport with the Green Berets that are there, well, guess what happens now? Your reputation will precede you. If you consistently spread disinformation, propaganda, lies about life-saving gear that Green Berets have designed and employed, that's kind of silly. It's kind of silly, isn't it? When you're fishing, many of you, I don't know if you've ever fished with a net, there's a big difference between gill netting, cast netting, and dip netting. I think it's still, I don't know, I haven't been in Alaska in a while, but it used to be legal in Alaska to use all kinds of different types of nets as a civilian, not as a commercial fisherman, to catch fish. Well, with gill nets, the size of the hole determines the size of the fish. Cast nets generally have smaller holes, so you catch small fish and big fish, trash fish and good fish, right? Well, how much sorting do you want to do? Sorting and vetting takes a lot of time under pressure and accountability. Unless you have the type of net, the vetting system that's going to get rid of the dross. I don't understand why I can't find anybody else that wants to go to the range and shoot, Saw. Okay, where are you hanging out at? Are you hanging out at an Appleseed event? You're probably going to find more riflemen, real riflemen, at an Appleseed event versus a hot yoga class. Just saying. Right? You go where the resource is. It improves your odds. You know, the intersection of trees, grass, and water, there's life. That principle has stood the test of time. Population density less than 10 people per square mile. That principle has stood the test of time. Why? Because of access to actual resources and proximity. Proximity. Even your basic calorie math should winnow that out. But the prepper parrots don't look at nutrition. They don't realize what will kill them first. Well, metabolic disease, statistically, due to the poor Western diet. If you're not next to where the wild foods grow, kind of hard to get them on the asphalt. Hard to get them on the asphalt. Hard to get those quality people, the quality relationships, slumming. Right? Slumming. And so our classrooms are designed as a filter to shatter myopic paradigms. And we don't tolerate the wrong type of people who want to come there and be disruptive. I was talking to a brother, or texting with a brother, emailing with a brother who's a teacher, one of my students. And he's a professional teacher at a private school. And he's got some kids that are disruptive in one of his classes. And that's the struggle as a teacher, is to get to the 5 good students in the, I don't know, was it 20 in the class, that really want to learn. Because of you start getting a bunch of disruptive ones, that quantity ends up overwhelming the quality time. The quality time. You could buy once, cry once, or budget could be your brand. You could sit there with forgeries and not have a real system. You could sit there with the wrong type of camouflage and not have a real system. When if you just made a little bit of an adjustment, you would save more time and spend less resources. And who knows that? The people that have already spent the resources, who've bought the lemons, who've bought onto the whatever stuff someone on the internet said, and then they put it to the test and it didn't pass. That's called vetting. You know, anybody can make a video and make something blend into something because it's a 2-dimensional screen. You know what's really difficult when you're reviewing optics? It's darn near impossible, even to this day, is to show the clarity that the human eyeball sees from when you're comparing one optic to another and record it. It's not the same. Now, if you were blind, it wouldn't matter. If you were colorblind, you couldn't tell the difference between this and this as much. You don't see the contrast the same. And it's not a camouflage discussion. It's Lane's authority and witness. If you trespass in someone else's profession and you ask them a question in a professional setting where other people know that they're a professional in that lane, they're going to give you a professional answer because of what? They're responsible for what they say too. I'm not going to lead someone astray with some silly theory I've already tested out that doesn't work. It casts the right type of nets, right? You know, you're less likely to get stabbed in a church than you are a bar, right? Like, if people have difficulty, it's like some people, their strategy is like, well, the homeless were this. Well, maybe, let's say you wanted to navigate the human terrain and blend in your environment. You're like, well, the homeless were this. So you want to blend in as a homeless? I've had to do that for close target reconnaissance. But the real question is, why are there homeless where you are? Right? Why is there a homeless population? We would call that a clue in the intel world that you need to move. If you move, it's a better net. It's just that one chess move makes all the difference. This land is huge, and we still have the freedom of movement. And so let's say you wanted some Green Berets and Rangers and stuff in your group. Well, maybe you need to move to where they are. Maybe you need to hang out to where they are, or change your circles. You know, if I want to learn flint napping, I hang out with the flint nappers. You know, you go to a nap-in. You want to hang out with riflemen? Go to an Appleseed. It's such a simple thing with navigating the human terrain, and people forget how to cast nets. It'd be like trying to cast a net in my yard and wondering why I'm not catching fish. Well, I have to go where the fish are. That's the first principle. Real estate, well, it's expensive. Well, a lot of the good areas are. There's a reason why real estate's expensive in California, because the zone's very temperate. The growing season's very long. Now, what happens with those easy times? They create what? Soft men. You want to be around hard men? Go where it's a little bit harder to live. Where you have to put forth effort. Where you have to have buy-in. Location with real estate. Yeah, that's a deal. We know this is a truth. Maybe if we start looking at relationships as a 30-year investment. What? I mean, we look at mortgages that way. Unfortunately, people, they make emotionally based purchases on their biggest decisions in their life, right? People do that with marriage, and they do that with mortgages. Don't they? Haven't you? I've done that. Right? I've done that where I've made an emotional purchase, a big decision, right? Based off emotion. Well, that's not the wise way to do it. The wise way is to look at it as a long-term investment. What's your return on investment over time? I can tell you the return on investment in Patreon is way different than YouTube. YouTube is a big net that captures all kinds. There's not really a filter. You just go one click away or 2 clicks away, that changes the math. Then you put a paywall, that changes the math completely. Yeah, quality versus quantity. You can change the size of the hole in the net, and you can also change where you're fishing. Yeah, maybe you won't have a bunch of Green Berets and medical professionals and, skilled tradesmen in your group if you don't hang out with them. If you're hanging out on the corner by the drug dealers, well, guess what? That's probably who your circle is. Well, don't hang out there. Move. It's such a simple thing. But that costs a lot, right? Because you have to change. And it's uncertain, and you have to do work, and you have to build up resources and assets to do it. And if it was easy, everyone would do it. If it was easy, everyone would go to Ranger School. If it was easy, everyone would be a Green Beret, right? It's like when the Army gave the whole Army black berets to, spit in the face of the 75th Ranger Regiment. Yeah. It didn't make them all elite just because they could put on the kit. I mean, what does some prepper parrot knows that has never done a real 12-mile road march with gear, or let alone a 40-miler, or let alone worn that stuff every day around other people wearing it every day and have tens of thousands of hours observing it under glass? The accountability in sniper craft is you still have to be able to maintain your camouflage and have line of sight of the target. That's what you can't see on the camera. That's the vetting part. That's a testing part. Vetting and testing? Yeah. Vetting never ends. It never ends. Are you who you say you are? That's the question. Are you? Well, how are you living? Are you trying to be a brother operating excellence in relationship, or do you go in bulldozing, burning rapport, being rude? I'm kind of a big deal. I'm the guy on the internet. Okay. Propaganda, inactivity, pride, and ego. That's the enemy. Well, that's the enemy I've been shooting at since the beginning of this project. Why? Because that's what's in the way of your fishing, of your MAGS tribes groups, of your triangles and relationships. It's propaganda, inactivity, pride, and ego. That's what's in the way. You have to check it. I'm not going to argue with a dental professional about what type of toothpaste I should use. They probably know better. Don't you think? Why would they know better? Because they look at the results all the time. It's not a one-shot pony, a myopia, a stage, you know, an act. Past behavior is a gigantic indicator of future behavior. And if people are acting that way now, when it's easy in America, we call that a clue in the intel world. If you want to know more, and if you do the just weights and measures of what I'm actually teaching, so we use weapons at Survival's Applications of Weapon Systems to do what? To teach principles. Camouflage is a weapon. Clothing's a weapon. Your mind's a weapon, and it's cognitive warfare. And that's what we're fighting, and that's what we've been trained to fight. So come on over to Patreon. But remember, check your egos at the door. It's a classroom. It smashes the myopic paradigms. It's unlike any other. It's been copied, and people have taken pieces of it. They'll be held accountable for their actions, just like we will. So use the right type of net. Use just weights and measures. And if you want water for life and life more abundantly, come on over. Maybe we'll see you soon. Shalom.